empty for now. afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, the Craig family, friends, colleagues, everyone linked to our dear brother, Jermaine Craig. It's been a difficult time for everyone, and I think everyone that I've spoken to, even getting here to the FNB Stadium, has said the same thing of the shock, the disbelief. But the most important thing for me has been the quick turn into the human being that Jermaine Craig was. Not only a basketball physique, but a giant in his own career. The warmth, the gentleman, the father, and I repeat, the father, because that was him, was about family, meant everything, family. I will treat each and every one of you here as part of that family, as part of the family that he would have wanted to see present here today. Nobody can ever replicate what Jermaine was all about, the wisdom, the courage, the determination, the never say die attitude, but also just being able to mingle from presidents to the ordinary man in the street. It's not easy when you are that important. He is that important, and that is why each and every one of you here is here. For 1 minute, may I please ask each and every one of you to rise, barring the family. I'll ask the family to remain seated. Can I ask every one of you to stand? We'll observe a minute silent differently, and I'll ask you, whichever monitor that is closest to you, to watch that. It will depict for you the full roundedness of the man's journey, his life, and items that mattered in his life. I'll ask you all to take your seats, please. Thank you. I think in that over 1 minute journey, I think we all got a sense of what mattered. We all got a sense that this person was 3 years away from the big 5-0. His portfolio, his profile was getting bigger and bigger. The respect globally he was getting bigger and bigger. He was not one to shy away from the challenges. And that is why with the many speakers that have agreed to come on board and say a word or two, and because there are a lot of speakers, I will urge everyone, and we got many stories to tell about Jermaine. We got many funny stories to tell, good stories, leadership stories, to try and keep it very short. As short as you humanly can, to give everyone a chance. I would like to ask Umama Sarah to officially open our memorial service with the prayer. Mama Sarah.
Thank you. Let us all stand and pray. Only the family can sit down. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Jehovah Modimo wa ka. Ntse ke o kopa ko rapela ka mehla ntate a matla ohle. Jehovah ke o mora wa hao Jehovah. Ka go mmolele ditsela tsa legodimo Jehovah. Jehovah tshedisa botlhe ba baleng ka gare go ena tulo ntate. Re o kopile ka mehla le matsatsi Jehovah. Ha se le kreke a robala Jehovah. Because everybody was shocked about him. We were working with him for so long. And he was a kind man. Jehovah, limo arobetin teng Jehovah.
Jermaine, he loved a lot of things, but football was one of those things that he loved. Yeah, from Silvertown to Johannesburg and his home ground of Athlone, to have everybody here today at Soccer City saying and remembering my friend, my brother. This is being recorded today. We want to make sure that you tell his story. I reminded everybody yesterday that the ancient Egyptians always reminded us that you pass away twice. First, when your spirit leaves your body, and secondly, when people stop speaking your name. So think about what he meant to you and tell others what he meant to you. Because to me, he was my brother. Yeah, we joke, friends that become family, he was that family. And I was extremely proud of him. You know, you have a couple of people when you grow up, that you look up to and say, I wish I was like this guy. Imagine when you have your friends and you feel like that about your friends. Yeah, his love for life. Consistency. When you look at his name, you say Jermaine, and you ask people 5 words. Those 5 words are consistent. Humility, compassion. When he speaks to you, he speaks to you. He sees you. He sees everybody. Yeah. And he reminded me that's how I want to be. So what I take from his legacy, Michelle, is to make sure that the boys remember their dad. Yeah. Amazing, amazing. Because he's alive in the spirit and the stories that we tell. I encourage you, be part of their lives. If you felt that he touched you, make sure that his kids know how he touched you. I will forever have a brother that's no longer here, but I will speak his name. Jermaine Craig, to his mom, to his family, amazing. He's a champion. We will have a memorial again in Cape Town on Wednesday. Today is but just the first part of the football community, the sporting community, remembering what Jermaine Craig meant to all of us. So I thank you, and I'll be keeping all of you honest to continue speaking his name. Thank you.
I know sometimes it's also very difficult to break whatever unwritten protocols there are of memorial services and remembrance. But I also need to say to you that feel free to express if there's something a speaker says, to acknowledge, to clap, to celebrate. He would give me a very hard time if he knew that we brought every one of you to a stadium to be silent. I would not hear the end of it. So let's not be silent. The big screens outside have his face on it. The newly placed electronic boards have his name on it. So we celebrate the fact that as young as he was, he spearheaded the communications department of the 2010 FIFA World Cup in this country. We celebrate that. So again, with respect, with the speakers, let's celebrate. Thanks, Anwar. I know how tough and difficult, but very brave that was. Also from, when you talk about somebody who's dedicated to the craft, and that is why we've got this array of South Africa's top journalists who'll be here. A short while ago, Bareng Batu Koches said to me, 3-4 weeks ago, when the very same Jermaine Craig was in the forefront of making sure that the name Kaiser Mdawung is in the Sports Hall of Fame. And he literally grabbed both of us, said, cameraman, someone, please, I want to take a photo with these two guys. I don't know when next I'll be able to see you guys again. Those were his words. BBK just came to me now, confirmed that with me, reminded me of that. Not sure what was going on in his mind. Not sure of the vision, the destiny. Talking about destiny, he wanted to be a journalist and a very good one. John T. Mark will be testament to that. He's Citizen sports editor and also former colleague and friend. John T., I invite you to step forward.
Good afternoon, everyone. When I started as a football journalist, that would have been 24 years ago, Jermaine Craig was the first journalist I met. He was standing on the steps at 47 Sour Street, which is the Star newspaper building, and he greeted me with a trademark, what became to me as trademark, extremely warm smile, and off we went to Tembisa to watch Tembisa Classic. At the time, they were in the South African top flight. All I can really remember is that Lincoln Mackett scored a hat-trick. But also I remember the warmth with which Jermaine welcomed me into the South African football journalism fraternity. He always made me feel at home. He never made me feel like an outsider. And him and Beauregard were really good friends to me, and we had so much fun in our early 20s covering the South African football. And Jermaine was always there, and we lost touch a bit over the years, but whenever I saw him, he greeted me with such a warm smile and said, Marksy. He always used that when he saw me. He was just such a warm, kind person, and I've got such good memories of him, and there'll always be a place in my heart for Jermaine, and I really offer my sincerest condolences to his family and his friends, and I'm very glad that there's such a special function here today to remember him. Thank you.
You shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Call me lucky, only still alive.
I think the good thing about our speakers so far, and I'm sure you'll agree, is that we wouldn't have had to take any of them for VAR review. They've been prompt, to the point, spoken from the heart. And I appreciate that. I appreciate it because I think we all would love to say something and share it. There's an aspect of Jermaine somebody at the back doesn't know, somebody on the right-hand side doesn't know, someone at the front, even family members don't know. So that's why this practice is important. Sowetan sports editor, former colleague Nkaring Matse is here. Nkaring, I'm sure, more than most, you would want to have a few words, a radio tweet after he passed on. And I could tell that again, like everybody else, you've lost a brother. May I invite you to step forward?
Good afternoon, everybody. Condolences to the Craig family. As John T. mentioned, we worked together at the Star. I joined after them, after both Jermaine and John T. in 2003. I was welcomed by Matselane Mamabolo in December 2002, but Jermaine is the one who officially welcomed me in January that year because Matselane had left. But apart from the journalism thing, Jermaine was a very good human being at heart. He accommodated me at his house in Linden when I didn't have accommodation. And I had barely known him for about 4 or 5 months at the time. And now we can imagine he was staying with our colleague, Biro Tromp. So these guys introduced me to a different culture. I didn't expect some of the things, such as going to a nightclub and returning at midnight. And then after we get home, we say, no, let's look for another one which is still open. So these are the sort of things that they put me through. But we were in our 20s at the time. But professionally, Jermaine also helped me as a young journalist entering the profession. I remember in 2003, he and John T were covering Bafana Bafana. I was a young journalist. I was covering the juniors, under 20s, Banyana Banyana, the National First Division and stuff like that. So he had a fallout with the Bafana coach at the time. So he couldn't phone the coach. So he asked me to say, no man, phone this coach. You have nothing to lose. And I was scared. I didn't know because I hadn't covered any Bafana story before. And he said, no, phone him. Then I phoned the coach. And the coach answered and he gave me the answers to the questions that Jermaine had asked me to ask. And then we shared a byline. But one thing what he told me afterwards was that you are likely to be a journalist longer than this guy is in the Bafana job. So don't be scared of him. So these are some of the things that he taught me. And lately, I was working with him on special project. I'm at the Sowetan now, as Robert said. So we publish supplements, inserts, and then we were working together, even on this Dr. Kaiser Motaung insert. We worked on it. And Jermaine was a hard worker. He would phone you and say, no, this is doable. I need a story in the next 2 days. And I say, no, man, I can't. He said, please try. And he would persuade you that it is doable. And we pulled it off. So for that, I will always be thankful. I will always be grateful that he played an important role in my stature as a journalist. I can go to him and say, you are one of the people who molded me to what I am. So to the family, condolences. You have lost a soldier. You've lost somebody who was a pillar to all of us as well, and also the football fraternity. Thank you.
Sleep apnea, maybe is what Nkaring was describing. I don't know if there's any medical persons here, but you know, when sleep is a problem, it's because of an active mind. And an active mind means that there are many various thoughts that are going through the next phase, the next journey. And I can attest to that. And I'm sure many others will attest to it. So I won't even jump that gun. I'll allow those entrusted to do that. Another gentleman who's earned his respect on the continent, around the world, covering stories, working with the likes of Jermaine Craig. Ladies and gentlemen, just to welcome SAFCHA chairperson, who is here, as well as SABC sports reporter, Velile Mnyandu. Velile, gazillion words, my friend, I'm sure. But wow, what a gentleman. Please take over the mic.
Good afternoon, everyone. To Usapo, Lwakwa Craig, Usis Michelle, Nabantwana. I thank you for this opportunity to be here today to look back at the colorful journey Yomkulwa Wetu Jermaine. Rob, you'll appreciate that I'm following writers now. I come from radio, so you know, but going back in my early years in the industry, one of the most influential people to me in journalism has always been Umatsalane Mamabolo. Growing up in the Eastern Cape back in those days, I got to follow everyone who was working with Bramatselane, and one of the people who was always there was Jermaine. First time I met Jermaine, I think we were on a bus trip to Mafikeng. Those were the days of the Vodacom Challenge back in those days. I think back then, a number of journalists, some of them have passed on now, but Xololo Macheka, I remember she was on that trip. It was for the first time Jermaine has seen myself, but the way he welcomed me back in those days, I was not even 20 at that time. I look back and I look at some of the speakers, in fact, some of the comments this week. Yesterday, I was talking to one of the young journalists who never even got to experience to read or even to see Jermaine's work as a journalist, but the way he spoke about him and the positive influence that he's been to us as journalists. And one of the things that I also saw yesterday, I was on the page. It was even before I got approached by Manzo Tapa today, and I looked at the comments from Oprah Sandile Memela, Oprah Sipongwema, just everyone who's been talking about Umjezo. As you know, Jermaine always had a name for everyone. But I would like to talk more about Umjezo as a big brother, and a big brother to us as young South African football journalists. And when we set up this organization in the middle of COVID as South African Football Journalists Association, he took it upon himself to say he would like to play a role and help us. Bring forward the issue of mentorship. I remember at the time, he was also working with La Liga. And he came forward to me and said, how can we work with La Liga? And in as much as Jermaine was this kind person, but he would also listen to you. And I remember saying to him, Jermaine, one of the problems I have with these foreign leagues, they come into our space and they want us to promote them, and they forget that we've got our own leagues here and we should give identity to these leagues. And Jovial, he was there at the time, and we went to address La Liga, we had a session with them, and we agreed that in as much as we'll promote you, but number one to us is our football and is giving identity to our league. But one of the things that me and Jermaine shared, and till the last day, was the love for African football. The love for African football and the role that I feel us as South African journalists have not done enough to show that we are leaders, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, in everything that we do around African football. And I'm glad that yesterday I interviewed one of the greatest goalkeepers that have come out of this continent, Thomas Ngono. And as I interviewed him, I recalled my last interaction with Jermaine. It was just a day after the African Football League final. And Jermaine was begging myself and Lawrence to do this interview. Because Monday was one of the toughest days for me, I didn't get to do that interview. it was literally the last conversation I had with Jermaine. And yesterday I did this interview and I felt the satisfaction in doing this. And lastly, Jermaine also in this new space, I feel that he just also had a different way as a communicator. And I'm glad that there's for racing here, because in the last few years I saw myself also doing interviews and following racing, because which I mean one shaya, you know. Because you know, as communicators, you'd come to us, to journalists, with stories and you'd feel like, I'm not feeling this story. But Jermaine, he had a way of bringing it to you. And when he's done with you, you will not say no. You know, and this is what I love about him, you know. But as I move off the stage, Prarob, next month is a very big month. It's the 34th edition of the AFCON. This coming week, we were looking forward to working with Jermaine in one of the biggest games, one of the Sundowns against the Pyramids. He will not be there. We're looking forward to work with him in AFCON next month. But yeah, I think those of us who are going there, we must continue with the spirit, we must continue with the drive, we must continue with the passion that he had, not only for his country, but also for his continent. Dabulel.
Thank you, Velile. Wow. I think that's the sobering thought that he leaves us with, is that of the Africa Cup of Nations in Cote d'Ivoire in January. And any World Cup, AFCON, any tournament that had football, and especially African football at the center, he'll be very excited. Velile talked about nicknames. And that is why, I don't know which generation of Kaizer Chiefs players would be with us in the midst, is that whatever conversation you had, and you talked about a Abednego, he'd be like, Valdez is coming home. Shaka Ngob. If you talk about Meshach, he'd be like, touch, Mr. Executive, Njengayega. I can list gazillion names. He loved adding a little spice to every name that you had. I think if he worked at Home Affairs, none of us would have our right identities. I'd be Zé Roberto, he would be something else. So, yeah, it's a good thing they kept him away from politics. Things wouldn't be going right. I'll tell you about the stubborn side of Jermaine, but I'll allow, stubborn in a good way. Yeah, he pulled a trick on me in March, but I'll share that later. But right now, I want to bring another close friend of his, MD of Arena Holdings. Let's welcome Mr. Lyndon Barnes.
I'm not so sure if Jermaine would want me to say anything today, because we often had our debates. He was an ardent Liverpool fan, loved Kaizer Chiefs, loved Bafana, but he would go out the whole weekend, depending on how Liverpool performed, right? Those of you would receive the SMSs from him, or you would receive the side commentary while Liverpool was playing. I had the privilege of knowing Jermaine for many years. I've been on all sides of Jermaine. My first encounter with him was when I was CEO of the Olympic Committee, and he would ask all the difficult questions. You know, and then later on in life, we befriended each other. And about 10 years ago, we ran a Monday night dinner club, and he would come and pop in on a regular basis and became one of the stalwarts of the dinner club, where we would have lots of discussions about what's happening within sport, etc. But Jermaine, if you had to give him a position in a team, since we're at the stadium, what would you give him? Which position would he play in? For me, he would be that holding midfielder, right? That guy who keeps things calm, together. You'd come to Jermaine, and like I've often would do, say, Jermaine, I need some advice. You know, then he'll say, no, let us not play the man, let's play the ball. He's that kind of guy. Well, I didn't always listen to him. Jermaine would prepare that holding statement that would just calm you down. you know, when you a little bit exasperated. And as a holding midfielder, he would know when to distribute that ball. He would help you, like many of you probably who worked with him, and he will testify. He would help you to say, okay, keep things together now, right? Let's be calm, and then distribute when it was needed. But as a holding midfielder, it doesn't mean that he lacked creativity. He was extremely creative. I mean, we worked with him on the Hall of Fame insertion for Kaiser Mutahung. When I told one of our ladies that worked on it with him that he passed away, she wrote a note to me and said, oh my word, what a wonderful gentleman. She only knew him for a few weeks now, recently. But she said he kept making corrections the entire weekend. This guy is a perfectionist, right? And he wanted things done in a certain way. And that's the kind of friend that Jermaine was, always smiling, always endearing, always there to hold your hand, but to give you clarity of vision and clarity of mind when you needed to deal with issues. He was that kind of person. And we will miss him dearly as a friend, because we've had this close relationship with him over the years. So all I can say to Christian and Matthew, when you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Michelle, walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, for your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone, because we as the family will always be there to support you. Thank you.
Thanks, Lyndon. Lyndon Barnes, a dear friend, a colleague of Jermaine Craig. Velile mentioned something about convincing him and the team to cover a story about horse racing. Yeah, join the club, boss. I think about, 2 weeks ago, I was on a similar call. Hey, Betway Summer Cup coming up. I'm like, okay. Are you inviting me to come? No, interview. So I'm thinking, my goodness, hey, Fridays, we normally, cover legends. Now, am I going to interview a legendary horse? Is this going to be the first time a horse is speaking? How's this going to happen? So he found ways and means, and next thing, boom, that Friday, I'm talking to Fundi about summer rain and all the major themes and the fashion and the horses. And I was like, yeah, you bugger. You got me, again. But power of persuasion is what he had in abundance. I'm going to invite now from the SABC, SABC Sport Marketing Manager, a friend, a former colleague, Sandesh Myers, to step forward. Sandesh.
Someone let the people know anything is possible. And nowhere will prosper. Still a strong time. One more time.
Good afternoon, everybody. To Michelle, Matthew, Christian, Auntie Brenda, I just want to say thanks for sharing Jermaine with all of us. I met Jermaine in 2009 during the Confed. He was one of my heroes. As a student, my first year of journalism, I think I'd done every single assignment based on his articles. And when I met him in 2009, it was like I was in awe, and this giant of a man standing in front of me. And I was just a fan, going to watch all the games. And yeah, in 2016, I was working at Octagon. I was selling some sponsorship for Sascock and for the Springboks. And Jermaine was in one of the presentations. And I got a call about 20 minutes after the presentation, and I saw 083-2010. So, if you know 2010 is in your number, that's quite an important person coming to you, especially in 2016, because that person was part of the World Cup. And it's Jermaine on the call, and he says, Mr. Myers, I enjoyed your presentation, but I have a proposition for you. So I'm like, okay. He's like, I want you to work with me at Independent Media. So I was like, okay, cool, sounds interesting. Do you have a job spec? Do you have something for me? He says, no, I have nothing. I just liked the way your presentation was, and I want you to start tomorrow. So I was like, what? Is this guy joking or what? But no, you are serious. And Hussein is in the room. He can Yeah, he can attest to that. The next day I joined independent media, and there was no contract, no nothing, but yeah, I ended up working with Jermaine. Jermaine, not only my boss, then we became friends. We often, we snuck out of the office quite often, have a bailiff, something he enjoyed, or played golf without Michelle and Michaela knowing that we were on the golf course. But yeah, we often snuck out and we had some good times. I'm also the coach of UJ, and I coach Matthew and Christian. And Jermaine was on the field Mondays and Wednesdays with the boys. And if he could see that I'm struggling, if there's too many kids, he'd just jump in and join me with the coaching session. And that's what this type of guy he was. He became literally my brother. If you know Jermaine, he could get into any place. This is a story I need to tell you. The first time I got into this suite was with Jermaine. We didn't have tickets, Jess, we didn't have tickets. We came from another meeting. He's like, Chiefs is playing tonight. Let's go try our luck. We walked in and we got right here. So that was Jermaine. I know he had a famous story that he took Michelle to the NBA in the States, and he only had one ticket. And he gave it to Michelle, and he said, don't worry, I'll get in. And that's how he said, you walk with purpose, Mr. Myers. You'll get in anyway. And it was 2 weeks ago at the Summer Cup. I had no ticket. I had nothing, and I got next to Jermaine, and he's like, how did you get here? I said, Mr. Craig, I walked with purpose. He says, I know, because I have your accreditation in my pocket. So yeah, I learned a lot from Jermaine. We are still in this industry called sport, and Jermaine Craig. The most important thing for me was the father figure that he was to Matthew and Christian, the way he spoke to the kids with purpose. He was amazing with him. I learned so much. Just the manner he handled himself with him. I'm really going to miss him. To Michelle, you have, I don't know what to say. I'll be there for the kids whenever I need to. I want them to continue playing with us. Spali, comrade, you were truly a nation builder. And rest easy, big guy.
Sanesh, thank you. Thank you very, very much indeed. I think the Walking with a Purpose story, I heard more laughter as far as that story is concerned, because I think a lot of people can attribute to that. But don't say that in front of a Bertie Grobler, who's stadium manager here. I was thinking, how the hell did our security allow that? So you're going to have a quick meeting, I'm sure. Hey, Bertie, look at all the CCTV footage. Crazy. The NBA story I can attest to. I think Anwar's also got an NBA story where they got in wherever they wanted to, chilled with the royalty of entertainment in America. Can you imagine? Eh? Anwar's still suffering from lack of sleep from that trip many years ago. Because not everybody could be here, ladies and gentlemen, we have compiled for you, and again, we'll activate the screens and the audio all the way through from the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Zizi Godwa, close colleagues. I think when I saw Yusuf Mohammed's number flash on my phone on Monday, I did not want to answer, because I knew exactly why he was phoning. So let's take about 9 or so minutes. It's a pleasant, hurtful remembrance of somebody that touched all our lives. Let's listen in.
This is Koto here. I don't want to call me Minister of Sport and Arts and Culture, because we have never met and known each other as ministers, this and that. I've met you a long time before I became a minister or anything. You have always been the same person, my brother. I'm still devastated about your sudden passing. My sincere condolences to your family, Michelle Craig, the entire football fraternity, the Naturena family. I can't believe that immediately after we inducted the chairman to the Wall of Fame, you passed suddenly, my brother. I've met you so many times since 2010. I've never seen such a hardworking individual with love and passion for sport. Whatever you do, we'll miss you, my brother. You will never die. You have multiplied. Condolences. Farewell, my brother. We shall meet again.
Good day, all. It is under very trying and testing circumstances that I stand before you today to pass this message on to Michel and Jermaine's family at large, as well as his two sons. My heartfelt condolences for the loss of your father, your son, and husband. Jermaine was a very, very tremendously kind human being who I learned a lot from and had the pleasure and opportunity to work with very, very closely over the last 3 years on a number of projects where at many occasions I didn't have the calm head to be able to work through things. Jermaine brought calmness, serenity, and a sense of equilibrium to all the work that we did. Jermaine was a very humble human being, and he worked well within our larger team that we had at Kaiser Chiefs, and I will very much miss him. Once more, my condolences to the family on the loss of a truly great friend and a truly wonderful human being who I can, with open arms, say that I was honored to have worked with and learned from. Jermaine also opened many doors and opportunities for me, along with our marketing team at Chiefs, and for this I am very grateful. Thank you.
Jermaine, my friend, that was a big shock on Monday. I remember when at Chiefs or anywhere, you were not happy about something, it could have been eaten even when we had having a breakfast and they delivered the wrong stuff. You would say, what is dit voor malligheid? So I presume when you came up there on Monday, your first words would be, what is dit voor malligheid? Jermaine, we know each other for a long time, from the days that you worked for the Star, then the World Cup, Confederations Cup, World Cup, when you were FIFA. And then we in independent newspapers, we worked on the project. When you were there, then you joined Kaiser Chiefs, and we had a very good time together. Even when we worked on the projects, we worked at night a few times at your house, where Michel always looked after us with some food and maybe even a glass of wine. Your kids, lovely kids were there. Jermaine, so tell us your story about life. You're gone, I will miss you. You'll always be in my thoughts, all the good humor you had as well, insights on different topics, and to Michel, a lot of strength in the weeks and months ahead. The kids, that all go well, the sons, and also Jermaine's mother, and Chief's family, obviously, and all your colleagues, and again, I will dearly miss you, Jermaine. Go well, my friend.
Michelle, Matthew, Christian, Jermaine's mom, and the rest of the family and the clan. My name is Rich Mkondo. I work with Jermaine during when our country was preparing to host the World Cup. It is a pity that today we are gathered here to talk about Jermaine in the past. It is because in life we often meet individuals who inspire us through their leadership qualities, talents, and character. These individuals dedicate themselves in nourishing relationships and the noble cause of making us feel better, whether we are at work, at home, and even on the street. Such individuals do this without expectation of any reward. Jermaine was one of those. Unfortunately, without a warning or fitting farewell, even such committed individuals are unexpectedly taken away from us. When a beloved person departs, we are hurt. We wonder why. We wonder why him or her. Today, we wonder why Jermaine. On Monday morning, we lost a patriot, a friendly and loving father, son, husband, a friend to all of us. It is indeed with deep sense of sorrow and pain, and yet with pride that we are here to talk about Jermaine in the past because of the work that he did, because of the relationships that he formed with all of us. Jermaine was someone who was able to do things that makes everyone feel proud. Today we speak without fear of contradiction or exaggeration when we say the World Cup success was by and large as a result of the enormous contribution and role played by all of us here as foot soldiers, supported by our Rainbow Nation. And Jermaine was one of those foot soldiers. Jermaine was one of the main contributors. It is because of him that we emphasize that the success of the 2010 FIFA World Cup was a true pinnacle of a can-do attitude of people like Jermaine. The hard work by Jermaine shall remain forever serve as an inspiration among all of us. Colleagues, those who give their time generously of their talents and lighten our lives is the best way to save our society with dedication, humility, and care. And Jermaine did that with success. We mourn and salute Jermaine because through his work, South Africa is a beautiful nation. We mourn and salute Jermaine because without fanfare, without seeking glory and status, he continued to be positive and defend the gains made by our country. A deep sense of desolation and grief has gripped our hearts and our spirit. We have a right to feel cheated by death that in silence stole Jermaine this week. Nothing could have prepared us for the terrible loss we've just suffered. There is a saying that time heals, that it heals the deepest wounds. We hope too that time will heal our wounds, and one day we'll wake up consoled in the knowledge that Jermaine was amongst us. Jermaine made a contribution. Today, the communication sector is poorer. The people of our country are poorer. We have all been robbed of a true patriot, dedicated soul in the reconstruction and development of our country. As we pay tribute to Jermaine, to the Craig family, your grief is the pain of the nation. Your sorrow is our sadness, and your pain is our pain. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you.
I think to all the speakers that we've just watched, Rich Mkondo also giving us just a narration of his association with Jermaine. And I think that last picture that you would have seen with him with the headphones, you know, during the interpretation of the different languages during the 2010 FIFA World Cup, we're constantly reminded of what a young trooper was in charge of that division. We are reminded that we were in the hands of a 34-year-old ambitious human being who did his job better than people who probably lived 3 times as long as he has. That driving ambition was there. Everyone was here for the Mexico game, but the main person who made sure when the world was trying to rubbish this country was Jermaine Craig and his team and his division. And for that, for the first time, I'll ask you to please clap for him. Dr. Danny Jordan, the CEO of the South African Football Association, he joins us on stage. He would have worked very closely in battling long and hard for us to have that pride and joy. And as again, I know when leadership steps forward, I also have to re-emphasize, football's 90 minutes. Speeches are so long. We've got our fourth official on hand in case we need to. But with the greatest of respect, ladies and gentlemen, I call upon the stage Dr. Danny Jordan.
Good afternoon. Robert knows in football now there's extra time and there is VAR. So extra time sometimes is 9, 12 minutes. So it's a long time. I want to, first of all, to Michelle and the two kids, Matthew and Christian, on behalf of the South African Football Association, express our sincere condolences to the entire family, the Craig and Lippert family. And when we see the photos here, we see Jermaine Craig as we knew him. And these pictures tell its own story. It's alive. It's a person full of life. It's a person with whom we spend many days. And Robert was just saying that in the World Cup, we had a particular enemy, the journalist from England, that walked the path with us in the World Cup. It started the day after we were awarded the World Cup, and then it was an engagement. And Jermaine would engage them with facts, with integrity, with honesty, without doing what they were doing to us, to besmirch, belittle, denigrate, insult the whole country and its people. And so, someone who has changed the world, changed the perception of this country in the world, with his candor, his kindness, his work ethic, his integrity, and always engaged as an equal, no matter who you were. Jermaine was a journalist, a communicator, a writer, a loyal servant, always serving in the interests of this country and of sport. I see now he's in racing, he's in all sorts of other sports. So we can't claim him as football, although he was central in delivering the Football World Cup in our country. I had many interactions with Jermaine before I joined the 2010 organizing committee, during his time at the Star newspaper. His reporting was always factual, always very clear. While covering the bid for 2010, he became fascinated by this dream of hosting such a prestigious event in our country. And with all of the other battles that came, because it was going to be the first time for Africa to host the World Cup. And that was a no-no for most of the Europeans, and particularly the English journalists. And while covering the 2010 World Cup, he became fascinated by this idea. In an article that he wrote in the Star in 2006, he said this of his beloved South Africa: "This is a beautiful country with the most exquisite scenery, warm, enthusiastic people. South Africa has the potential to be a wonderful World Cup host." Jermaine was a journalist with no vendetta or agenda or malice against any person. He presented an argument calmly and truthfully. He was consistent and predictable, always presenting a picture of reality without emotion. His journalistic integrity is without question. He believed in finding the truth. He believed in reporting the truth. He shied away from any type of reporting that was dubious or at odds with his own moral compass. His ethics and sense of justice was unparalleled. It was never headlines over his responsibility to his reader. This kind of moral backbone, a truth seeker, a man of sincerity, were the trials and traits that made him a righteous messenger of the project for the 2010 FIFA World Cup. But it is this audacity of a South African. We know the depths of our resources and the ability of our people. We know how to do the impossible. Jermaine knew this kind of resourcefulness and grit, and he exhibited this every day at work. The media, especially the ones from across the pond, were relentless in their assaults on the country. But Jermaine was steadfast and convinced that this World Cup will be the best ever. In the deluge and the assault on our country, Jermaine engaged in an equal with fellow journalists, not as a second-class citizen to the global media, but as an equal, holding the light to the truth. An impeccable gentleman, consistent and predictable. It was always clear what he stood for, believed in, firm and consistent. Jermaine understood the legacy of the World Cup host for our country. And the first, he needed to be flawless. He knew that any mistake on our part will be exaggerated and be raised as if the heavens caved in on South Africa. Any mistake was not possible because we would be held to a higher standard, simply because we were from Africa. We had more to prove than any other host before South Africa's first World Cup. For 6 weeks, there was a sense of nationhood, belief, there was pride in this country that was palpable, electric. We built modern stadiums, unqualified audit every year of operation. We opened our arms to the world, and they returned the embrace. And Biko says, it was an attempt to put a human face on our country. And certainly, Jermaine's legacy is that he paved the way for understanding of the magic of an African 2010 FIFA World Cup, gave South Africa and Africa a more human face. And he was right, and showing true humanity. He knew Ubuntu in his bones. So after the World Cup, it was then that people looked again at South Africa as a host for all major events. So to Michelle, I can understand your incredible loss. It has been heartwarming to see Jermaine's journey as an adult. And I met Michelle when she was still a student at Rhodes University, and now as a mother of two. I wish you all the best. We lost a friend on Monday. We lost a person, but you lost your partner, your lifeblood, your support, and we understand that. But you have inherited a new tribe of people sitting here, of people who were at your house the other day. So you have gained many more people, and we want to be there to support you. I think it's clear by the turnout here today that there are more that will show up for you and your family. You probably have inherited a new football team. I don't know what is the name, but we are here as your friends and your supporters. To Matthew and Christian, Jermaine's sons, I want to say to you today that your Father created a better world for you. One with more opportunities, more possibilities, a history that you can be proud of, and a history that you can call on. The way he did everything was with kindness. He knew who he was, and he stood tall in it. I want you to hold on to that. Stand tall knowing you are Jermaine Craig's son. And I want to wish you all the best so that this country can know you are Jermaine Craig's son. To Michelle and the family and everybody who came to support the family, I want to thank you, and thank you very much. Thank you.
The SAFA President, Dr. Danny Jordaan, thanking him very much indeed. And I think I'll just peel off very quickly on something that he said towards the end, and that's about adopting a family. I want to re-emphasize that because I think at a time of mourning and in a very quiet moment on Tuesday, I threw the words back at Michelle and I asked her, what are you feeling right now? And she just said, I don't know, Robert. I don't know what I'm going to do without Jermaine. So I think in us trying to answer that, Dr. Danny Jordaan has led on it to say, look around you. There are semblance of Jermaine in everyone that's occupying a seat or standing today in this room. That is what you will be doing without your husband, is allowing each and every one of us to step forward and be the true friends to you, the family, as he was to you as a husband, and with all the happy pictures that we've seen as somebody who led the way. These are the people that are left behind for you. Mommy, I know you gave me about 45 minutes of your time as well on Tuesday. The deep pain you've had to go through. Husband, son Chad, now Jermaine. You know, I talk about a very short period of time. I even said I don't know where you get the strength from. I still don't know. But I know deep down inside, that loving, longing feeling for somebody that's touched so many lives will continue, but allow us to soften that blow in whichever way we can, because we are here. And strength to the family. Strength to the family. Lux September made a journey to this part of the world. He's somebody that we're equally very proud of. A son of the soil, somebody that we've given to the continent as well as the world, to the expertise that he has, to the expertise that both he and Jermaine were able to bounce around so openly, because that is how great both of them are. I'm going to call upon Lux September to step forward representing CAF.
Thank you, Robert. My dear sister, Michelle, Jermaine's mom, the Craig family, my president, Dr. Jordan, Kaiser Chiefs family, the legends who are here today, without whom we wouldn't be here, most of us at this stadium. We never forget them and the contribution they have made to football. I saw a number of people, including Coach Pizzo and others here today. The people from the clubs, dear friends and dear colleagues, before I start, I'm going to ask that we give a round of applause to Kaiser Chiefs for putting this together, first of all, please. So thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Kaiser Chiefs. And the reason I'm doing this is because a few months ago, me and Jermaine went to the East Rand when Koketso KK lost his mother. So when we came back there, we had a meeting. And he said to me, you know, Lux, football used to care. Sport used to care about people. But this industry is losing this. And we discussed how we can pass this legacy to the young guys about the football or a sport industry that cares. Because we are not a bank, we're not your typical institution. We're supposed to be an industry that cares. I'm going to talk about Jermaine very briefly, a guy who I spoke to almost every day, literally every day of my life, more than once, to the irritation sometimes of Michelle. Robert said, I think it was Michelle who said she doesn't know what to do. And I think last night we had a meeting, a staff meeting at CAF, and the guys asked me because Jermaine was an important part. We had given him a key role in running AFCON. He was the chief strategist in comms and stakeholder management. And now the guys yesterday asked me, okay, Lux, what's going to happen? And I said, I don't know. And I mean it, I don't know. Earlier this week, the president of CAF went outside the protocol, Dr. Mutsepe, because normally a president of CAF sends a letter when a former international player passes on or a president passes on. He wrote a personal letter to my president, Dr. Jordan, and a letter that surprised me as well about Jermaine. The letter was not the normal script the president will write. It was more personal about his interaction with Jermaine. One of the biggest moments of this country was the 2010 World Cup, but dare I say that the last 3 weeks or so, that weekend of the derby, the AFL, and the induction of Dr. Mutsaung was probably one of the biggest weekend of South African football. On Thursday, we had the induction of Dr. Mutsaung. On Saturday, we had the derby. And on Saturday, we had the African football final. And in South Africa, I only know one person who was involved equally in all three events, and that was Jermaine Craig. Now, this usually caused a great deal of camaraderie, but also of jealousy between myself and Jessica and other people that we share, because Jermaine worked for everyone, and Jermaine was passionate about, he never said no to everyone, right? So we will have a three-way call, myself, Jessica, and Jermaine about something, or we'll have a discussion. And then Jermaine will commit to this particular thing, and afterwards I call Jermaine and I say, Jermaine, forget what Jessica was saying. This is the most important thing. And then Jermaine will call 30 minutes later, and he will say to me, the stakeholder, no, behind her back, we refer to Jessica as the stakeholder. That's a story for another day. He will say to me, but Lux, you say, comrade, the stakeholder called. She says, now, this is what we should be doing. We will need time to get used to speak about Jermaine in the past. Jermaine was a storyteller. Today we are here to pay our respect and remember a life like no other. But how do we capture in words and in a few minutes the highlights of a life lived over 4 decades in different newsrooms, boardrooms, football fields, and cricket fields? On Sunday at around 7 or 8, I spoke to Jermaine for what would be the last call between us. Jermaine was focused, motivated, The only thing he spoke about was the AFCON. On Monday, CAF is launching the global TV promo for AFCON. The person who wrote the script for this promo is Jermaine Craig. Now I need to make a disclaimer. I didn't offer this job to Jermaine of writing the script. When he discovered we were working on a promo, he called me maybe 5 times a day and said, Lux, I should be the one who writes this script because I understand African football. So eventually I gave in, and Jermaine wrote the script, and the results were amazing. After our call on Sunday, which was about a recap of what happened last week, and he spoke passionately about how we can assist in different things, we agreed on a meeting, me and him, on a dinner meeting to finalize the strategy for AFCON, which was supposed to be on a Monday night. This was supposed to be the dinner meeting between myself and Jermaine, and he insisted this should happen after he has put the boys to bed. Unfortunately, this would never happen. A few months ago, myself and Jermaine sat not far from here in Sentin. We wanted to answer the question, how can we tell the story of the African Cup of Nations better? Put it differently, we were exploring the question, how do we tell the story of Africa differently? Not the story of wars, not the story of poverty, not the story of failures, not the story of corruption and hopelessness. Of course, these things exist in our complex continent, but Jermaine and I shared a view that there are many faces of this continent. He felt AFCON is not just a football event. He saw AFCON as a platform to reposition our motherland, Africa. A day after the AFL final, which was here in Pretoria, Jermaine called me. He said, but comrade, and this is how he started his call, we are doing the disservice to the chief. This is how he referred to Dr. Motsepe. While many exchanged high fives on that day, Jermaine was not satisfied with small victories. In his words, we ought to tell the story of African football and the success better. I patiently waited for him to finish this call. Then I responded to him, but comrade, you are speaking like a fan on a radio station complaining about the starting lineup. The reality, I reminded him, now you are one of the assistant coaches. You cannot complain on radio anymore. You must do something. And Jermaine responded, okay, after this, we'll put together a strategy. We were still working on this. Jermaine was loyal, very loyal to the people around him. I'm somehow comforted by the fact that some of his dreams, including a return to international football, were somehow realized in the final half of his life. In Casablanca, there was a picture of him in Casablanca here. I've known Jermaine for many years, for almost 2 decades, but this is the happiest I've ever seen him, running the operations of the CAF Champions League final. Everyone here says Jermaine was a nice person, and maybe he was. But a few weeks ago, at Loftus, I think Kabelo is here, we saw a different side of Jermaine. So we had this big guy from Egypt. So he complained about something. He was very aggressive to us. So he came towards us. We were sitting, myself, Jermaine, and I think Kabelo, and I can't remember who else. And Jermaine listened for a short while, and then he lost it. He stood up, he went close to the guy, and gave him the piece of his mind. The guy backed down. I mean, the guy was so big, you know. As he left, I couldn't stop laughing. I quipped that today I saw the Jermaine from Cape Flats, who was defending his turf and would not allow anyone to disrespect his area. In today's world, when meaning of words have been hijacked, Jermaine and I refer to each other as comrades. The word has deep origins from Spanish, Russian, French. For example, in Spanish, it means roommate. In other language, it means brother, confidant, soldier, trusted ally. I went further today to check the difference between a friend and a comrade. And the quote I found is as follows. The difference between a friend and a comrade. The friend is somebody who cares about you in general and your well-being. But when somebody comes to you as a comrade or as a soldier or an ally, that relationship is under the context of war. For centuries, we the Africans have been at war to restore our dignity, to heal our continent from divisions. We have been at war against perception. We have been at war against a world that looks at us with pity and subtle decisiveness. To win this war, we need comrades amongst us. To say goodbye to you, my dear brother and comrade, still feels unreal. The last few days have been a blur, a bad dreams we all hope to wake up from. Farewell, dear comrade. You've played your innings. May the beautiful spirit of Jermaine Craig rest in peace. Thank you.
I can imagine you, Lux, hiding under the table while Jermaine faced the Egyptian. But you were always well guarded, sir, because I'm sure the Eastern Cape in you was never going to let that down. And we know the boxing champions that come from there. You were never going to allow that to happen. Thank you so much. Representing CAF, ladies and gentlemen, and when he talks about a personally crafted letter from the president of CAF, it again means a lot, because when you journey on in the week and weeks that Lux was describing, it is a heavy burden to also introduce a new competition on the continent and be part of the people that's spearheading that. And that is why on the 11th of November, at this very same stadium, when he had finished walking up and down with the president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, the president of CAF, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, and he just phoned. He says, "Hey, Zé Roberto, where are you guys?" I was like, "No, we're still at the stadium." And then we directed him to the stadium management suite. And all he wanted to do was to breathe. I think the week and the weeks that culminated up until the Soweto Derby were a lot. And all he wanted to do was just sit on the grandstand and watch the fans disappear. And we literally were almost the last people to leave. Almost reminded me of what Ngareng and Velile were talking about when you're going out and it's a club and it's like, "Oh, no, let's go for one more." We sat here, we were the last people to leave. And all he wanted to do was just to breathe, take it all in, but at the same time be proud, because all of those events turned out to be a success. And that, ladies and gentlemen, we should applaud him for. And one of the dear brothers who would have been in that gathering of three, believe it or not, is a former Springbok. He's an author. He's a room divider. He's somebody who had also forged a very good relationship with Jermaine. He's now working with the Bulls at Loftus. The Bulls Daisies, the project of women's rugby sits in his hands. They've been champions. And he wanted to also tap into the championship mentality of Jermaine Craig. Let's introduce Thando Manana.
Program director. It's not often that I sit or I stand in front of a soccer crowd or soccer family, so hopefully I won't feel isolated. But first and foremost, where I come from, to lose a loved one is shared by the village. We feel it because we know in that house a man has departed. And therefore, as neighbors, we'd always come, hang around, because we want to support, we want to be seen. And I mean, I think if I talk about Jermaine, I talk about a guy maybe slightly taller than me. In fact, I quipped one day to say, you always invite me to this very own suite with Jessica, but you never come to the rugby games. And your height says that you should have followed rugby in Cape Town, because that's where rugby was played more than football. My name is Thando Manana, and when Jessica phoned me to say a few words, I said, in a split second, I would do so. I would like to thank the Craig family also for giving me this opportunity to say a few words about Jermaine. In fact, he used to call me a different name. He said, Spali. I don't know where he had that from, because I was never his Spali at all. But he gave me that name whenever he chatted to me. And none of us was ready for his untimely passing. I got a message from Uputzola Dunywa early Monday morning, forwarded to me, because I guess he had seen our picture that we took somewhere where Robert was speaking about, which I had put on my status. Little did I know that that would be our last time that we would have a swan song weekend together. A lot of my friends were Jermaine's friends. I also come from a media background, by the way. After I stopped playing for my whatever reasons, I went and did media studies at Wits and worked at SABC, did commentary, but the bug will always come back and hit me to go back into rugby. So now I'm a rugby administrator again, because that's always been my passion. I'm prepared to die for, and I'm happy to stand here and say that we've had a nice discussion just before we won the World Cup for the 4th time, where I said to Jermaine, one of the most happiest things for me to see was to see Siya Kolisi back-to-back, never been done before. Only New Zealand has done that, and that was Makor. So with those little few words, he was to me a man who set about to do his work vigorously. I once said to him, when does he rest? So I'm quite happy that the stories that I'm hearing just speak of a man that works 24/7. This was his response. My arms are as strong as my tasks. He had a servant's heart, did Jermaine. Little did I know, as I've said on that weekend, that it would be our last meeting together. But I'll tell you 2 stories. One, during COVID, I used to bake, I used to cook, I used to do anything. And at one stage, I had a couple of jerseys that I wanted to give away. So there was a 46664 jersey. And that 46664 jersey, Mr. Jordan, Dr. Jordan, was the iconic Nelson Mandela number, which was used for the Africa 11 versus the World 11. How I got it, I don't know, but I had the original one. So he replied to the tweet, and he said, hey, when I was about to leave Cape Town, apparently when you guys moved to Johannesburg, he had packed all his stuff in a box, but he also has trash and he had his memorabilia. So I don't know, maybe because of time constraints, he then packed the wrong trash box outside. And by the time he realized, that box had gone with the trash people of Cape Town, and he was left with the real trash. So then he sends me a DM. He says, Sbali, that soccer jersey you posted brought back memories. And then I responded, I said, unfortunately, I've put it up for, not for sale, but I want to give it away. And then he says, can you keep it for me? And then I will pick it up. I didn't know how, but then he said to me, oh, I asked the question. Because he said his one had a Pele signature on. So then I asked, who's going to defraud the Pele signature? Because it's quite a difficult signature on that one. And then he said, we'll make a plan. But I never gave him the jersey because I'd already given it to someone else. And I think this story is also very nice where he gave me a call in the last week of February, and he said, "Smiley, what are we doing for Roberto?" I said, "I don't know, his birthday is on the 1st. So Rob didn't know we were planning something. He was the mastermind of that. So we normally have the Boy Scout that we normally call. So in fact, when he phoned me for a cake, he asked me for a cake, that I must bring a cake. And then I agreed, but then I realized the person that normally gives us cakes is Robert. And it's his birthday, so it's difficult now to ask Robert for where does he makes the cake from. I phoned Beverly, I said, "Bev, I need you to track. You did a show with 9 to 12, the DJ at Metro. Rob? Sundays. Yeah. Wilson Bingos. So I remembered Wilson Bingos. So I said, "Bev, in that show you were heavily involved. Where did you make the cake?" And then Beverly didn't know where Rob is making this cake. So it was a big problem for me. Fine, we prepared, we bought everything, and then the venue was set just opposite 947, the old 947. So on my way, I stayed in Pretoria. On my way, I still had this thing about the cake. And then I went, and then I phoned him. I said, "Listen," or a day before, I said, "Listen, I have a problem with the cake." I phoned Craig. He said to me, "Okay, don't worry, he'll make a plan." But because I felt bad, I then went to Woolworths, but I got to Woolworths and all these cakes are in the fridge, and I don't think, because I know this guy, if I bring something cold, a cake from Woolworths, it will just stay there, he won't eat it. And then Jermaine apparently asked Michelle to do that 50th cake. So this is the story. Is that Jermaine was told by his wife that you cannot put the cake down because we're going now to meet in Sentin. You must personally hold the cake and make sure that it dare not fall. I mean, that's Michelle to Jermaine. It must arrive the way she intended it to arrive. As a result, Jermaine took an Uber that day. Michelle doesn't know that. And this is something I learned. I mean, we laughed about it, but this is what I learned. I learned as a man who knows the rules and what is good for him. Jermaine understood the values of containers. So he made us to take our overnight cake because we couldn't finish. We had some other drinks. And you know, once you have the other drinks, the cake doesn't sit well with this drink. And we all took a piece. He urged us to take a piece so that he can take this empty container to Michelle. And that container was his diplomat. And that could open the door for him when he gets back home that evening. And the moral of the story, Michelle, was that was to maintain good relations to a good wife. That's what I learned from the story. In closing, my dear friend Jermaine, we will always remember you and miss you. Your decency and sincerity will stay with us forever. You are a great and a noble man. In our grief, I know where you are. You will continue to be the person that many of us have said about you. But now we give you back to the Almighty's hands. We commend you to God's loving hands. God rest his soul. Thank you very much.
Towards the end of my conversation with Michelle on Tuesday, she says, "Not even a slice you guys left for me of that cake." So the cake story has reappeared, and I hope now it's out of my hands, Michelle. But I think the part that Manana probably didn't emphasize enough, and I want to thank you publicly, is that in the middle of the night, your husband asked you for this task of baking the cake. And you did. And we have never had the most wholesome red velvet cake ever, courtesy of Michelle. So we thank you as a collective. Yeah. I mean, what a negotiator. I actually shudder to think what else he would have negotiated for our future as a country. Tandiwe Matibela will join us on the podium, ladies and gentlemen. Would have worked with Jermaine on various projects, but also I think it was about the personal connection, the personal touch, and the journey fulfilled. Tandiwe, please, if you may step forward.
It is much darker when a light goes out than it would have been if it had never shone. Today, it's very dark because Jermaine is a very bright light. Hello, everyone, and I'm so glad that I get to speak after Lux, because every time he turned the page over, I was like, all right, I'm not gonna get VAR'd. This guy hasn't been VAR'd yet. And because I am a former journalist and because I am a communicator, I can talk, but I'm gonna try and keep it brief. While I have been introduced as somebody who has worked with Jermaine before, I have known Jermaine for many years, since my days at SABC, and those are many years ago. I was trying to think of a story to share about Jermaine, today, and honestly, it was difficult to make a choice because this is a guy who seems to have excelled in seamlessly and effortlessly making each moment special and memorable. And what is even more admirable is that he did this with each and every person. Jermaine is genuine. I've no doubt that many of you had plans with Jermaine this week, and equally I have no doubt that not once has ever Jermaine not honored an engagement or plan that he would have had with you. Sadly for all of us, this is the one time that we know with certainty that those plans will never happen. But I certainly hope that we keep with us all the time the light that he shone on our lives, and that may be the anchor of our memories, and that we may hold on to that dearly. My last conversation with Jermaine naturally began with Tembewe. That's what he called me. The story behind that is short, but I will not relay it. I did yesterday, but I think like all the other speakers have spoken, Jermaine seemed to have had a knack of giving special names to people. So I can proudly say I was Jermaine's Tembewe. Every time I spoke to Jermaine, Michelle, there was laughter, and there was a great appreciation of each other. In fact, that is exactly what Jermaine was as my boss at SA Tourism. And so I asked myself yesterday the question, and I still do, did I celebrate him enough? And sadly, and the bitter truth is, no. Jermaine was my go-to guy. And from time to time, Jermaine would begin that WhatsApp and be like, Tembewe, there's a brother. You know, Jermaine always wanted to find me a brother. In fact, our last conversation on WhatsApp was about a brother. But this time, the conversation about a brother was initiated by me. All Jermaine said was, I can initiate for you to be smiling with that brother. Sadly, I will not have that moment. A wise person once wrote, and believe it or not, as a communicator, I'm about to conclude, Robert. No one has actually died until the ripples they cause in the world die down. For all our comfort, we can gladly know that Jermaine will not die soon, because Jermaine's ripples in the world
are certainly not about to die down. Auntie Brenda, Michelle, and the rest of the family, I am sorry. Thank you.
Tandiwe, thank you so much. And I think for a lot of people that think the Spali thing is a myth, if you're close to this side of the stadium, I urge you again just to flick across to the middle, the new electronic boards that have, there it is, rest in peace, Spali. That's what's written there. It's a continuation of a true story. It's a continuation of something that existed. And Jermaine existed in many different languages because he wanted to associate. I will be leaving the podium, handing over to Jessica, our wonderful host, to guide us through up until the end of this afternoon's tribute. But one of the key things, again, that I managed to share with Michelle in that short period of time that we had in conversation was to ask the questions on how we continue a journey in fighting the scourge of cardiovascular disease. How do we get the message across? Because then it becomes our burden to do that in trying to help others. Because it's also very difficult to grasp how, in trying to improve your health, in going to a gymnasium, that is where you meet your end. We get encouraged to eat well. We get encouraged to exercise. We get encouraged to at least walk, strengthen the muscle, the core muscles within you, especially the older you get. And then you follow those prescripts of what any cardiologist will tell you. But in following that, there lies a problem. I've used examples in the past. I said I saw a few pictures of him and Lucas Khatebe, played for Leeds United, UEFA Champions League, Bafana Bafana captain. 2008, Lucas Khatebe, heart attack. Where was he? Virgin active. Mark Vivian Foe, Cameroonian football player, playing what he loved. On the field of play, cardiovascular disease, his life was cut short. Fabrice Mwamba, luckily he survived because there was a cardiologist in the stadium who was then able to step forward and say, I can rescue this man, but his football career had to come to an end. The list is endless. Some of us are examples of survival on multiple occasions. There might not be a third time. For people like Jermaine Craig, our dear brother, it was once and final. And that is the hard part for all of us to grasp, is that he was doing everything right to balance this 24-hour that we were talking about of a hardworking man. That was his balance, to let off steam, to exercise, to be healthy. No one will have the right answers for us. And that is why it becomes important for all of us to really look after each other when that happens. He was doing right for himself, right for his kids, right for his family, and especially right for his wife. I think let's keep that journey going for him and not lose hope. We'll play a short video because part of his journey, as we referred, for Jermaine was for racing. I will ask Gabriel Sommer to step forward, just to be here at the podium while that video is playing. He'll introduce certain members of his team to also come forward and give a few words. But ladies and gentlemen, Michelle, you did say on Tuesday you want to celebrate the man. We start with the grieving, the entire process, and this is part of it. And I think the celebration is there. The reflection is there. The mourning is ever present. And once again, we thank Kaizer Chiefs, the family, for allowing this to happen. Gabriel, I'll ask you to step forward and we'll play a short video for you.
When did you fall in love with the beautiful game from a professional point of view, but also just as a soccer lover?
You know, it started when I was still a kid, before I even went to journalism school.
Yeah.
My Cape Town Spurs team, you know, I must be careful now because my team are battling to get into the PSL.
Yeah.
But as a kid, Cape Town Spurs won the double in '96. I was a kid at journalism school, and I called up the newspaper, the Cape Argus editor, and said, look, I want to write for you for the Argus on this Cape Town Spurs team.
Yeah.
So there was Andre Arendse, Sean Bartlett, you know, some Francis Shonai, some fantastic footballers. And I just went up as a kid. I went to write about this Cape Town Spurs team, got published in the local papers. But, you know, this game, and as a Cape Town boy, growing up in Athlone, on the shadows of Athlone Stadium, seeing these great Joburg teams come, it's been a big part of my life and my home.
We've got this Ball of Fame here.
The Ball of Fame?
Yeah, the Ball of Fame requires another signature. Mr. Takerbet has already graced us with his autograph here.
Hey,
Jermaine Craig.
Big names here, man.
Big names, but yours is certainly not small by any margin.
Good afternoon to everyone here and those that are watching online. Firstly, I would like to pass on my deepest sympathies and condolences to Michelle, Brenda, and the entire Craig family. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Jessica, the Kaiser Chiefs family, the stadium management for putting this together and allowing us the opportunity to remember one of the great men of our time, Jermaine Craig. I'm very saddened to be standing here under these circumstances, but I can honestly say that it's an absolute honor and privilege to be talking on behalf of 4 Racing about a man and to explain to you what he actually meant to us. Jermaine Craig and I crossed paths around 2 years ago at our company 4 Racing when he first was introduced to the horse racing game. There's members of the team here that will come up and chat about their time with Jermaine because they've experienced a hell of a lot longer than what I did. And they'll come and give you a brief story about their time with him. But what I can honestly say is the time that I shared with Jermaine was absolutely impeccable. And in 2 years, the man has left a lifelong impression on my life. There are few people in this life that have the ability to affect other people's lives without excess time spent or without any effort. But I can honestly say that Jermaine Craig was one of those men. He could touch the lives of us, and as I say, without the effort or excess time spent. There are also very few people in life that would have the portfolio Jermaine has, and I've only come to learn of the portfolio he had in the recent days, that is loved and respected by his peers the way that Jermaine was. He was truly a phenomenal man. I know that all the people Jermaine had dealings with in our industry, and definitely what I'm seeing here in all the industries that he had dealings with, are absolutely shattered by the news that we received on Monday. Michelle and Brenda, I cannot fathom what you two are going through right now. And Michelle, you got to keep the strong face because you've got Christian and Matthew, so I cannot fathom what you guys are going through. And there's very few words right now that will be able to comfort you. But what I can say is that the family can be absolutely proud of the man that Jermaine Craig was. He was truly a wonderful human being with a heart of gold, and the man would go out his way for absolutely everyone. And from my side, it was an absolute honor knowing Jermaine Craig. I would like to end off by saying that there's a couple of things that have been said earlier today, and I'd like to reiterate that these young boys would love to hear about the stories about their father. And I absolutely second that we need to keep in touch with them, share stories and all our encounters with him, because they need to be proud of the man he was. And I'm sure going forward, they definitely will be, as they are right now. So I'd like to say, Jermaine Craig, my brother, I hope you rest in peace peacefully. And to honor Jermaine, I do believe he's here with us. I'd like us all to give the man the loudest round of applause, to say well done for the absolutely brilliant career that he had, but more so, the wonderful human being that we all encountered. I would like to call on Stephen Watson from 4 Racing, and he'll share a story or two.
Thanks, Gabby. Afternoon, everyone. Michelle, Craig family. I've realized today that Jermaine clearly had a real challenge with our given names, because we all seem to have a nickname. I made the fatal mistake of telling him the nickname that I hated. When I first met him, I said, "Hi, I'm Steve," and he said, "Stevie Wonder." I said, "Call me anything. Call me Stevovo, like everybody else, but please don't call me Stevie." Every day, "Stevie, how's it going?" The most funniest story for me, though, is I first met Jermaine in working for the 2010 LOC. And in leading up to the preliminary draw, my wife was expecting our first child. And the week before the preliminary draw, she went into labor. And Jude Mateo Watson was born. And as a result, I couldn't go to the prelim. I did. I got up every morning at 4 o'clock, took the flight down, got into Durban at 5, was at the venue at 6. I would be greeted by Jermaine. But since that day, Jermaine has called my oldest son Prelim. At a recent horse racing event, in walks Jude. JC goes, "Hey, Prelim." Jude looks at me and goes, Some of you might be wondering how Jermaine got into horse racing. And as I was walking up here, I was thinking, what would he want me to say? And the first thing I thought JC would be saying, "Don't make them cry, make them laugh, brother, make them laugh." And he always used to do that. I don't know if you remember about them, this emphasis. When Jermaine, whether he was answering a diplomatic question, he'd start, CEO, and then he'd give his story. But once he got his punchline, he would repeat the punchline with his hands, this gesture. Make them laugh. So the truth is, guys, how did Jermaine Craig get into horse racing? Football brought him into horse racing. How, you may ask? Well, I got asked by Mary Oppenheimer and co. to help with the TV side, and shortly after that, I learned that the successful candidate for the CEO of 4 Racing was Fundi Setebe, who I know is in Hong Kong and is watching this live. Fundi Setebe was in the prodigal office of 2010 FIFA World Cup. And we were sitting together, and I was explaining about this company that had been in business rescue and how rife the politics and how destructive the politics of the sport was and how much of a challenge we had. And we're going to need a solid and good communicator. And immediately we thought of Jermaine Craig. Because, of course, there's no politics in football, right, Danny? Lux, nothing? None at all? Nothing to manage, no diplomacy needed, none of that. We said he doesn't know anything about horse racing, but he will manage this perfectly because he's a subtle diplomat. He stands his ground. He's not a yes man, and he will manage this politics. So football, thank you for grounding Jermaine Craig in sports politics. We've used it to our full advantage. And as you can hear from everybody else, thank you to all of the football journalists in the room, SABC Sport, Super Sport, MultiChoice. Thank you so much for featuring horse racing on your football shows. Because he was persistent. I think he was even bothering Michelle to get more of our football content into her newsroom as well. Persistence and emphasis is this man. So I'm going to share two quick stories with you around this persistence. The first one is about his ability to get in everywhere, which somebody else has mentioned. I'm going to roll back the clock, and there's a lot of LOC people in this room. You might have not seen Jermaine for a decade, and they're here because of the impact that he had on their lives. But we were all sent off to Euro 2008 to learn in readiness for the 2010 World Cup. And after all of this lessons and tutorials and stadium visits, etc., briefings, nighttime came. It was time to go out. We had a great dinner. Of course, Jermaine said, we've got to find a club. So we start trawling. We find a club, but the queue is miles long. We're never going to get in. Jermaine whispers in my ear, off we go. We grab Delia Fisher, who was his counterpart at FIFA. We go up to the bouncers of the club and we say, we've got a party here from FIFA. We'd like to come into the club. The guy looks at us and goes, why? Well, it's Euro 2008, and a couple of the players and VIPs have asked us to suss out clubs that they might want to have an after party at. We got a table, we got free drinks, we were in. That was Jermaine. But more recently, fast forward, Qatar World Cup final. 2 days before, I get a call from JC. He says, Stevie, are you going? I said, I've managed to get a ticket from Hisense. Brother, did you get another one? I didn't. He says, are you sure? Are you sure your wife's not going? Why would you ask me that? Because I'm going to talk to her because I like football more than her and she should give me her ticket if she's going. I said, she's not going. So the next day I boarded the aircraft. I saw Mr. Jordan, Dr. Jordan at the airport. Didn't speak to him long because he turned left on the aircraft. I turned right. And as I saw Dr. Jordan, Danny as we all called him, I thought, geez, JC, he's really going to miss this one. I don't believe it. I can't believe it. But he only called me yesterday. What could he have done in 24 hours? As you know, it was a Football World Cup final, probably one of the best ever. Half-time, my phone rings. I look, don't recognize the number. It's, Stevie, how's this game? JC, are you here? I'm here. Of course, I got a grandstand ticket. JC's waving from a hospitality suite. I think the best thing about Jermaine is, I think if you needed any evidence of the impact he had on people's lives, look in this room, from all walks of life. But I must tell you that when he first phoned me after Fundi called him to say, come and join horse racing, he phoned me, he said, Steve, I don't know much about horse racing. I said, you don't need to know about horse racing, you're going to learn that fast. What we need is your diplomacy, your ability to manage politics. And he said, okay. And just before he left the call, I said, JC, are you scared of horses? I'm going to tell you, he paused. He paused, but I don't think he would ever admit it. I think the last thing I'd like to say is, in my mind, I would ask myself what he would say to us today and what he would emphasize with his hands. And his message, I would believe, is don't take any other day for granted. He never knew he was going. Live every day that you have like it is your last. Like it is your last, he would say. Don't take your lives for granted. That would be his message. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Gareth Flusk, and I'm part of the 4 racing team. Out of this whole room, I'm probably the person who has known Jermaine personally for the shortest time. It's taken us, I think, about 20 years and more to actually work together. When he was a journalist, I was playing sport, and he wrote about it. My wife told me a story which she's never told me, and I've known her for 20 plus years, is that there was a game at the Wanderers. It was a Sunday. Wives and girlfriends were on the grass bank. Jermaine was sitting over there. The Wags were here. It went down to the last ball. and we won. And my wife comes from a football family, and Jermaine, in his beautiful way, went up to her and said, "I've never seen you that excited, not even at football." And he just had that way with everybody, that good-naturedness. I'm here I'm very good at public speaking, by the way. Not good in this situation. So I warn you, if my voice quivers, it's because Jermaine made such a big impact on me in 3 months. Fundisi Tebe asked me to relay this message, and she said to me just before I came up, she said, "No papers." So Fundi, no papers. I have it on my device. So here's Fundi's message a tribute to JC, my comrade. JC had many nicknames. JC, Craig, Media, and he'd called me Protocol. But my fondest name for him was Comrade. I still don't remember how we got there, but that's what Jermaine became to me, a comrade of the movement. However we defined that movement, he was my comrade. Our first mission was the 2010 local organizing committee when I first met him back in 2008. And a professional relationship that would grow into fantastic friendship sparked off. Our roles at the time defined the nicknames Protocol and Media, as they were in essence our responsibilities. Jermaine was a larger-than-life character, was admired by all, including the famous Mam Tilly, who made beverages at the LOC, whom Jermaine absolutely loved. And we were lucky to see her last year and took a beautiful picture together. Our inspections for the 2010 LOC took us to his hometown, Cape Town, where I met and spent time with his beautiful family, revealing another side to Jermaine. And although we were no longer working together, our friendship continued, including our get-togethers. JC, Skumbuzo, Makazoma, and I, the three musketeers. I can't recall what came first. South African tourism always moved back to Cape Town. But to my surprise, we would reconnect at my late father's memorial service in May 2017. I didn't know that my dad was like a mentor to Jermaine and Jovo Rantau, amongst others at the Star newspaper. So much had changed in my life back then, and it was almost as if Jermaine instinctively felt that he had to protect me, because he had so much respect for my dad, the late Wiseman Kuzwayo. Jermaine reappeared again in my life when I was at the Airports Company, South Africa, when he covered some of his work we had done in Ghana, and so our friendship continued and grew. His birthday being on 7 February and mine on the 8th of February, he was always there for the big birthday celebrations, my 30th, my 35th, and 40th birthdays, and many other milestones. Fast forward to 2021, when Colin, Gordon, and I met with him one morning to gauge his interest in joining the 4 Racing team to lead media and communications. I had said to Colin, there isn't anyone with greater experience that I would trust more than Jermaine. And I think Colin and I did a stellar job in presenting him the opportunity, because many times he'd jokingly say to me, "Comrade, what exactly do you have me to sign up for on that day at Inanda?" We would spend many a day meeting at our Inanda, plotting out how to navigate the horse racing industry, an industry unaccustomed to people like us. And as we did this, we managed to influence, empower, and touch many lives and small businesses in the process. In this very short period of time, since he took the role on, Jermaine has built a rapport with so many people in the industry. The messages of condolences I've received this week span the different parts of the industry. Owners like Stinky and Ashwin Reynolds, trainers, the De Cox, Joe Soma, jockeys, Cabello, Muzi, and Smanga, the punters, sponsors, in particular Nick Johnson, WSB, Top Bet, and Betway, as well as his colleagues, have been nothing short of amazing. Within just 2.5 years, Jermaine has left such an indelible mark on so many lives. We'd often joke about him sitting in the Furious Room with the punters and having a Coke and a pie. The photographers, media, and other stakeholders were his companions. One day, a strategic decision was taken to call 4 Racing the people's operator. And true to character, JC literally took that to heart, embracing everyone, regardless of status. He would always remind me, "Comrade, you said you are the people's operator. Now, embrace the people. And so, always so respectful, addressing everyone as Mr. and Mrs. We recently walked the journey of the Betway Summer Cup together, and this year's Summer Cup literally had the most media coverage since we took over. And Jermaine was at the forefront of that phenomenal achievement. He had worked so hard throughout these various challenges, but made it seem so simple. And I really do think he was proud, as we all were, of how beautifully executed it was. Jermaine was such a team player. I would sometimes drag him into the marketing and sponsorship space, and he was never one to say no. He developed such strong bonds with our own internal team across the business, and has left such a huge void. The gentle giant will not be walking the corridors of Turfentino TV studios or the groom's accommodation anymore. I'm not sure what happens now. I'm not sure how we fill this void. I am clueless. I'm deliberately focusing on the work memories because on the personal side, I'm absolutely broken. I've been deliberately avoiding mourning Jermaine because he has left such a big void in my life. I don't even know how or when I'm going to start to cope. My family and friends knew JC and adored him like anyone who met him. Our conversations ranged sometimes from serious and sometimes just a bunch of bollocks. He had this habit of making fun of me, when something serious had happened in my life, almost making it bearable. The mark of a true friend. He remembered from as far back as 2010 that I absolutely love Out in the Streets, the song by R.J. Benjamin, and he arranged the events team to play it for me just a week ago. There was stress and excitement as the team and I sat in the office the Friday before the Summer Cup, doing my final tasks and having lunch. Little did I know that would be our last meal together. Had I known, I would have allowed him to use Sister Bettina as the official Summer Cup song. A song he loved and something that he'd been advocating for, which we always conveniently laughed off. Michelle and the boys, thank you for sharing Jermaine with us. I know there were days when he'd literally disappear into his work. Thank you for allowing us to experience this wonderful, respectful, funny, and talented human being with us. My comrade, may your soul rest in eternal peace. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Fundisa Tebi's message. One thing I want to say, when I grow up, I want to be Jermaine Craig.
Wow, 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 wow. How do you start to comprehend what has been said by 4 raising members? Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them another round of applause. Dr. Denny Jordan mentioned earlier, we are in football, spoke about extra time. Now we're introducing what we can term a super sub. So I was standing itching there that I'll be called up by the coach to enter the fray and make a contribution. And for that, I wish everyone in his absence give Robert Marawa a round of applause. A true star and a very, very genuine, consummate MC, sought after, and we all wish you could conclude this program with us. My name is Vina Maposa. I'm the Corporate Communications Manager at Kaizer Chiefs. Had a privilege and a pleasure to work with Jermaine on a daily basis. What a privilege, Michelle. Condolences once more, strength to you and the family. Working with Jermaine, my colleague Jabulani Mbanjani, the machinery behind most of our PR and media at the club, makes it easy for me to can make this short contribution of calling upon on stage Ena Perdomo from La Liga to come and give the memory of Jermaine Craig, the one that we love
admire and will continue hold in our hearts. Ena.
Good afternoon, everyone. From La Liga, our heartfelt condolences go out to the entire Craig family, especially to his wife, Michelle, and the kids. We are deeply sorry for the loss of your husband and father and son. Please know that our doors will always be open for you. We are grateful to the Amakosi family for providing us with this opportunity to share our thoughts today and honor Jermaine's memory. We have lost a dear friend, un gran amigo, a leader and a stalwart in media and sport communities. Jermaine was an extraordinary person who exemplified dedication, hard work, and kindness. His open-mindedness and willingness to listen, coupled with his invaluable insights, left a lasting impression on us. Beyond his professional attributes, he was a true gentleman, someone who could transform a room into a friendlier, more engaging, and happier space. As we come together to mourn his loss today, let us also express gratitude for having had the great privilege of knowing him. Jermaine's actions taught us how to be better individuals and how to foster greater care and concern for one another. Thank you all, and may his soul rest in peace.
So it happens that the last time I spoke to JC on the 15th of November, that is outside work, sending a message to me early in the morning saying, Vina, I'm envious of you, my Lord. I'm not finding time. I need to exercise more. You comprehend that and see that this is the man who was conscious on a daily basis on the things that he needed to do. Me and him shared photos, family photos, on a regular basis, and I must say that will stay with me forever and ever. Without a waste of time, Powell Venska, please join us representing NBA.
Thank you. So let me start. I think we all know Jermaine was a football guy, but I think you should all know he was a basketball guy and an NBA guy, as much as he was a football guy. I was fortunate to know Jermaine for over a decade. He was a team member of the NBA Africa family. He's attended so many of our events in the US, NBA All-Star Weekends, here in South Africa, Basketball at Borders camps, junior NBA programs, NBA Africa games, all three of them. We've had various conversations about the upcoming Basketball Africa League as well. And what really strikes me, when I was trying to gather my thoughts before today, I remember a few years ago, he traveled to Pokeng, Northwest, spent a weekend with us at the annual Royal Bafokeng Junior NBA Finals. And he spent so much time talking to various stakeholders of the program. He was still with independent media, including all the kids on the floor. That resulted in a great story a few days later that his craft really came through. But what struck me really was that he was really so focused on the impact of sports, and in our case, basketball, that it had in the Northwest Province. And over the years, we had various conversations about sports, about football, about basketball, how sports industry comes together. I think he was a great connector. He was a great writer, editor, true professional, and a good friend. And as I reflect on the past couple of days, what really strikes me is there's been so much coverage and focus celebrating Jermaine's life, all the pages dedicated to his craft, his legacy, and it really speaks to a life well lived. But what I would leave you with is, I think Jermaine's life has been also, and career has been a proof that you don't need to be a professional athlete, you don't need to kick a ball, you don't need to bounce a ball to make such an impact on a sport industry and beyond. That is really beyond measure. And in South Africa, I would say Africa and in a broader society. So condolences to Michelle, family, our prayers are with you. My brother, thank you, legacy, live on, thank you.
Just ladies and gentlemen, just be aware that we right on time, we're doing very, very well. The standard that was set by Robert and put us as speakers to make sure that we keep time. We're coming to a part that is dedicated to Kaizer Chiefs, starting with the letter that is scribed by the chairman, Dr. Motaung, writing it directly to Michelle and family. I'm going to read the letter verbatim, addressed to Mrs. Michelle Craig and family. Dear Michelle, it is with deep sadness that I extend my sincere empathy and heartfelt condolences to you and your children on the tragic passing of your beloved husband, our dear friend and colleague, Jermaine. I knew Jermaine for many years as a kind-hearted, soft-spoken gentleman who was unanimously, excuse me, with the doctor's language there, liked and highly respected in equal measure as a man of integrity and excellent journalist. His sudden departure from this world is difficult to process. Everyone at the club is profoundly devastated and struggling to come to terms with the unexpected loss of a colleague who was one of the Kaizer Chiefs family throughout a long-standing relationship between us. As we mourn the loss of one of our own, our hearts go out to you and your family who grieve for a husband and a father. No words are adequate to offer succor at a time like this, but our thoughts and prayers stand in solidarity with you, that you and your loved ones find the solace and strength to endure this painful ordeal. Right now, it is impossible to contemplate his absence. He leaves a space that cannot be filled, yet Jermaine will forever be a part of the Kaizer Chiefs story. He enriched our lives, and we are grateful to have known and spent time with him. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Dr. Motaung, Kaizer Chiefs Chairman. To you, Michelle. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask the video to be ready that we're going to watch. But before that, I'm given a task to ask for a moment of your attention as I go through a poem that I hope you will savor and you'll appreciate. It goes as follows. Sip your tea, nice and slow. No one ever knows when it's time to go. There'll be no time to enjoy glow. So sip your tea, nice and slow. Life is too short, but feels pretty long. There is too much to do, so much going wrong, and most of the time you struggle to be strong. Before it's too late and it's time to go, sip your tea, nice and slow. Some friends stay, others go away. Loved ones are cherished, but not all will stay. Kids will grow and fly away. There is really no saying how things will go. So sip your tea, nice and slow. In the end, it's really all about understanding love. For this world, in the stars above, appreciate and value who truly cares. Smile, breathe, and let your worries go. So just sip your tea, nice and slow. When I'm dead, your tears will flow, but I won't know. Cry with me now instead. You will send flowers, but I won't see. Send them now instead. You'll say words of praise, but I won't hear. Praise me now instead. You'll forget my faults, but I won't know. Forget them now instead. You'll miss me then, but I won't feel. Miss me now instead. You'll wish you could have spent more time with me. Spend it now instead. When you hear I'm gone, you'll find your way to my house to pay condolence, but we haven't even spoken in years. Look for me now. Spend time with every person around you. Help them with whatever you have to make them happy, your families, friends, acquaintances. Make them feel special, because you'll never know when time will take them away from you forever. Alone, I can say, but together we can talk. Alone, I can enjoy, but together we can celebrate. Alone, I can smile, but together we can laugh. That's the beauty of human relations. We are nothing without each other, so stay connected. Isn't that talk reminds you of our own Jermaine? This poem from Prof. Lee Zhu Peng from Singapore. Let's get the video.
Must employ me with chiefs.
Oh, Chiefs. We don't want 7 years. We want to win the trophy next year. We've had 7 years of drought and famine.
No problem.
The famine is done.
We are not with Jermaine or Arsenal.
No. The Gunners were not even here. At least the cop was on the pitch.
Liverpool were not here. Arsenal were not here. Man United were so far. And the cup finished where? I thought the cup would finish.
The cup finished in the top 8. We were in the top 8.
On stage, calling Kaiser Chiefs Marketing and Commercial Director, Jessica Mutaung. On that note, just as everybody Lux mentioned it adequately, I want to say and read to you with regard to Jessica, the last message I received from Jermaine. Vina, where are you? Jessica Mutaung is elected in the first board of the African Football Club. She's also elected as the deputy chairperson of the ACA. That means African Clubs Association. My leader, can we do something quickly? That's Jessica Motaung, coming on board, newly elected ACA executive member.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. That poem, Vina, speaks so much about who Jermaine was. And I'm so glad that we connected. We spent time together. I have no regrets. This is going to be so hard. The only thing I'm going to regret is that we don't have more time. We won't do the things we wanted to do. Today, in this presidential suite, in this colossal stadium, we are celebrating a sporting legend. Do you understand? We are celebrating a sporting legend. If you look at the program today, Jermaine was not only just in football. Yes, he was anchored in football. But look at the sporting industry he impacted. You have La Liga in the room. You have the NBA in the room. You have 4 racing in the room. And Steve, there's something I have to change here. Your narrative is not correct. I introduced Jermaine to horse racing, okay? After I had horses, and I went to the event in Turfentine, I actually said, Jermaine, you need to come with me because it's a new industry. I don't know what, I'm learning about the industry. I'm a new owner, and they want me to do a whole lot of media. And Jermaine came with me, and when we were there, he rekindled his relationship with Fundi, and that's how actually things came about. And Fundi was like, great, just, I can't believe Jermaine is here, it's perfect, And also based on the fact that we wanted to impact the horse racing industry, and Jermaine was the right partner, an ally. And like, I'm not just gonna say he's a comrade, he's an ally, and I think we all know that. One of the things I can appreciate about Jermaine is that he's an honest person, but he's one of the most loyal people I've ever met. And I think anybody in this room knows that Jermaine, you can trust Jermaine with your life. There's never a deadline he's missed. There's never a moment he said he can't do anything or not be available for anybody, including myself. So we are really celebrating a legend. And I'm sad that we celebrate him when he's gone. Because I don't think many of us told him some of the things here that I said. And his passion at Kaiser Chiefs, his other home, Jermaine loved Chiefs. He'd tell me about how the legends would drive in to Athlone and come to see them, come to us, Jess, That's what he loved about Chiefs, and his passion for the Chiefs legends. And I think we should give some of them a round of applause who are here today, who have worked with Jermaine and who've contributed to South African football. And his mission was to make sure that our legacy program that we started would endure. And he's written a number of things for us, created the events, and I was so proud when we had the opportunity to induct the chairman, my dad, to the Hall of Fame, because it was a project a year in the making. Bertie, you'll remember. We came here to the Hall of Fame. It was supposed to happen last year, October, around the chairman's birthday, and it didn't happen. And when the opportunity came, Jermaine said to me, Jessica, everybody was saying, it's a derby week. There's so much happening. We don't think we can do this. There's just so much happening. Jermaine said, Jess, we have to do this. We cannot allow this opportunity to go. We can't be celebrating the chairman when he's not here. And I must say, Jermaine took that project, and anybody who was in that room knows it was a magical night. He wrote that script. He curated it. We sat down. He talked to all of us. He said, we've got to get hot sticks. I mean, he was even singing the songs during our marketing session. We've got to get Dr. Victor Matisela to come and Ramatisela to come and be the MC. It's got to be like this. And what a magical night that kicked off a magical weekend for South African football. And we were able to showcase in this stadium
what South African football is about. And thank you to Danny, the PSL, and everybody who really played a role in making things happen. And I was so proud to walk next to Jermaine with President Infantino and President Motsepe and our sports minister. You know, proud of the work he had done and proud of what our team had done. And then also, I was glad to sit at Loftus watching, and I took pictures. I love to take pictures, and I sent them to him of him working and directing the field and the journalists. And I was just very proud of the work he did. And it's so fitting that we're here in the presidential suite, where he played a key role in really showing the protocol skills he had. You know, Jermaine worked with giants, princes, and big sports people, but he knew how to deal with them at every level. And in fact, he instructed them in many cases on what to do. You know, that's the thing people don't understand. You know, he's a great strategist, and you do want him on your side. So I'm very proud that we are here in his stomping ground, in a space that he was able to command. I mean, when we were here with the FIFA president, Patrice was concerned about protocol, and I said, you don't need to worry. We'd come in here, we did the seating perfectly. And then when I was at the ACL, Patrice came to me and said, was slightly not happy. But I said, you see, Jermaine should have been involved in this whole process, you know, because, you know, Jermaine knows what to do. Like you remember, I was very clear about that. So as we celebrate Jermaine, let's remember that he's a legend. As much as he worked with legends and great people, he's a great person, and he's contributed significantly. And I think as we reflect on his remarkable life, we must remember the immense impact that he's had. Throughout the years, many of us have had the privilege to really witness Jermaine's incredible journey, his early days in journalism, as everybody has spoken about. And today, as we say farewell, let us find strength in these memories. Let's not forget them. You know, let's find strength in these memories. And Michelle, we will share more pictures with you. And we want the boys to know him in this space and to know that he's a mover and shaker. And like you said, your son said yesterday, greatest man he's ever known. You know, greatest man he's ever known. And I love reading the posts because they're so true. You know, sometimes when a person passes away, people say wonderful things. And sometimes we know they were not so nice. But we know that everything that's been said about Jermaine is so true. He's a real gentleman. He's a wonderful guy, you know, and everybody, you know, the minister called me and he said, not Jermaine. You know, and that's been the cry, not Jermaine. Why Jermaine, you know? And as we embark on the journey, let's honor his memory. Let's continue his work. And I think, Lux, you spoke well, and you guys were working closely to make sure that we really create a new culture of care, a culture of diligence, a culture of excellence for us as sporting people to take sports to the next level. And I love the fact that Jermaine was able to traverse all the types of sports, you know? And he had a passion for sport, obviously football being very important. His work on the 2010 World Cup was just unbelievable and exemplary, and I think, Danny, you've touched on that. I've been inspired by his work at Chiefs, his dedication to the brand, and I was glad that he had the opportunity to induct my dad, his hero, and to work for his hero. You know, he really felt privileged to be able to do that. But I was even more privileged to see him on the African continent, commanding the space. You know, you feel proud as a South African when Jermaine is around. I'm sure Piso can testify to that. You feel good when Jermaine is sitting on that stage, speaking to African media, who really sometimes don't appreciate how we as South Africans are and excel. And I'm very proud that he represented us with distinction. And I'm just sad because he was one of the first people I spoke to with my announcement. And he was, "Ooh, Jessica Motaung." You know how he goes. You know, we're going to do so much. And we had so many plans. And I know now when I face those challenges, I know I'm going to say, what's Jermaine going to say? What would Jermaine do? Because I knew I could trust him. There was never a time when Jermaine was playing politics, playing games. He was honest. When we strategized, we did the right thing. We weren't doing things to be seen to be doing. That's a South African thing. You know, we like to be seen to be doing, not doing it. He was honest with me about stuff. And when you're a leader and working with people, you need people who are honest with you. And that's one thing I appreciate about Jermaine, is that he was honest. And as a leader, you must be able to take criticism and hard conversations. And we had those hard conversations, you know. But also, Jermaine was a friend, and I think I'm going to take an ally. You know, he was a friend. I'm very private with my life, but Jermaine could come to my house, you know. Jermaine played golf with my kids, you know. Played golf with William, my partner. I mean, they'd sneak off and play golf without even telling me. We used to have our 4 balls, you know. My boys have great memories with Jermaine. Even my son, Donald, who doesn't play golf, was very distraught and sad because he knew Jermaine. You know, Jermaine touched everybody. And we're just privileged to have had the time with him. When I look at it, you know, 47 years, but when I look at Jermaine's life, he lived a full life. He lived a full life. He really packed so much into that life. And I'm just glad that last week was so magical for him because he did so many things he'd wanted to do, and everything just worked out. Thank you to all the people who've spoken here today, but most importantly, thank you to the Craig family. Thank you, Ma. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing Jermaine with us. And I know I called a lot, we talked a lot. We had conversations of like, Michelle and William need to understand, we're working, you know? But I love the fact that Jermaine was a great dad. I'm a mom, and that's very important to me. And his kids and Michelle were everything to him. Trust me, we talked about you guys when he wasn't with you. You wanted to check on the boys. So I just want to say, I know you've lost him, but he's with you. He's with you, he's in our hearts. And as everybody's said here today, we are here for you as a family. You're part of the Kaizer Chiefs family, you're part of the football family, you're part of the sporting family, and the South African family. And now, with all the work we've done, the African family. It's just been a privilege and an honor to work with Jermaine, and I'm just thankful that I had the time with him. I'm gonna miss you, Jermaine. I'm gonna miss you. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna miss you.
A round of applause once more. I don't know how to explain it. Jabulani Kemiso will be a one-man down in our editorial team, in our media team at Kaizer Chiefs, including content team. If you check, Jermaine worked with Kaizer Chiefs for many years as a consultant, but very closely since 2018. So if you know football, you count 30 plus games per season. And in 30 games, one game takes about standard 4 content pieces, starting from interview from the media day to the preview, to the match review, to the match report. And, you know, he was part of that machinery. So we interacted with him for so many years and in so many occasions. We will miss him, and the legacy that is left with us will stay on forever, as we ask Jeremy to please come forth to do the thanks, thanking also our technicians, KCTV, colleagues, backroom staff involved in the planning phase of this particular memorial ceremony, including other catering as well as suppliers. Jeremy will do the response from the family and also the announcements of the funeral details.
Good evening, everyone. So, I should introduce myself properly. My name is Jeremy Michaels. I'm very proud to say Jermaine I've known for more than 30 years, since our days at Pentec Journalism School. Some will differ with me, but the best journalists come from Pentec, right? We know that now. Jermaine, yeah, you know, it's quite weird because after 30 years, I thought that I knew Jermaine, but in the last few days since Monday, I've learned so much more about my brother. And it's difficult to talk about him in the past tense. He's my brother from another mother. Auntie Brenda, from his humble days on the streets of the Cape Flats, Silvertown, we thank you for bringing him into this world, and we know that your loss is deep. Jermaine was your pillar, and there's a lot more detail that I won't get into now. Thank you, Auntie Brenda. Michelle, Matthew, Christian, it's difficult, and I know how difficult it was for you to be here today, Michelle. So thank you. Thank you for sharing, as Jessica said, thank you for sharing Jermaine with us. And, you know, as I was conferring with Michelle, and I'm going to make this very quick, Michelle said, you can tell Stevie, I don't know where Stevie is now, but she said, tell Stevie that I was the one who organized those World Cup tickets for the final 2 days before. And she learned some of this, as you can imagine, alongside Jermaine, right? So, very quick story. She says, after the NBA All-Stars in LA, when we had one ticket for the game, he told me to walk with purpose. And we ended up in a suite, she says, that day too, one ticket in hand. We're going to miss Jermaine, but we know that you are going to miss him more than all of us. And rest assured that Matthew and Christian will feel our presence. There are many people to thank, and you know, one is never really able to do justice. But thank you firstly to Kaizer Chiefs. Jessica, you've been instrumental. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. The family appreciates it. All the arrangements, and you know, so many people here today, but also so many people online. I'll come to that in a second, but it really means a lot to the family to be able to hear these stories. And the outpouring of grief, yes, but love, the outpouring of love today, for the last few days, all over social media, mainstream media. It's just been unbelievable. Thank you. The Premier Soccer League, Dr. Danny Jordan, thank you for the moving tribute. As president of the PSL. And yeah, there were lots of tears flowing here throughout, but particularly as you spoke, thank you. For Racing, La Liga, NBA, thank you. Robert, in his absence, we shed a few tears outside as he walked out. And for Robert too, you know, Robert and Jermaine were very, very close. And yeah, for him to be able to do this is big, and it means a lot. Thank you, Robert. Many people out there online, as I said, across the country, across the world, we know that you are listening. Thanks for making your presence felt too, the many messages. And Thanks, we should say thanks to Faisal Cook and Cut to Black for streaming. Thanks. Just in terms of the arrangements, the funeral arrangements are Saturday morning, 8:30 for 9 at Bryanston Methodist Church. There will be an opportunity for viewing, and the service will start at 9 o'clock. And then next Wednesday in Cape Town, St. George's Cathedral, courtesy of Father Michael Weider, we're going to be celebrating Jermaine's life in Cape Town appropriately, as all legends who come from Cape Town do, in St. George's Cathedral. Thank you so much. Thanks again to Kaiser Chiefs. Thanks, my brother.
We have come to the end of the program. Thanking everyone. It's time to mingle. It's time to share personal accounts with friends. And you go in peace. And we look forward to see you on Saturday at the funeral. Go in peace.